Welcome back to Wander and Wonder. We live in a distilled reality as a result of our access to technology. Take, for example, you're walking down the road and you see a tree with 100 birds in it, while all other trees are empty. And from this tree, there's a very exciting, frantic, and full song, the song of 100 birds all singing at once. And by filming this and broadcasting it to the world, you have thus distilled what could be considered an average day or even a boring day, by taking that which is extraordinary and segmenting it, filming it so that it can be viewed again and again, so that people can experience this moment of extraordinary activity on Earth in the midst of their otherwise ordinary lives. I believe this was a term that was referred to as hyper-reality by philosophers before me. And it's interesting when these things just present themselves to you and you realize what it is. Now, the effects of hyperreality are something that we haven't yet discussed, at least not in scope. And I think what the effects of hyperreality are dopaminergic, serotonergic, motivationally speaking. I think that we would have the expectation to do a lot less for a lot more. And when we're doing less than what is required in that situation, we're completely, effing the dog, or being lazy, or being a way that we know that we can be better and that we should be better. There's like a guilt about it. And that's why they call such things guilty pleasures. I know guilty pleasures is changed into some sort of a niche piece of media that you should be embarrassed to like because it's so lame. But that's the type of existence that we're talking about. The type of existence that's so lame that you should feel bad, or that you think that you should feel bad. But I suppose that these are tasks that some people could consider boring. And even if they're not, I was thinking that the effects of hyperreality are creating boredom, creating the expectation that each day with access to our technologies, we will be able to access a more distilled version of extraordinary reality, with low effort, with the push of a button, as they say. Boom. The most beautiful photographs ever taken. The most beautiful music ever played. This is all accessible, via the internet, via a 5G or 3G, whatever you have. But even if you don't have that, it's so amazing that we can do it from anywhere. But, we go home and we have the same tech built into our computers. And, imagine if we didn't have these things. The adjustment, from the expectation, even the subconscious expectation. Because you can tell yourself, it's not going to be like that anymore. But there are things that are going on behind the eyes, behind consciousness itself, behind thinking, that we fail to realize, or that we're not supposed to know. Maybe becoming more in tune with yourself does mean understanding what's going on in the subconscious, not just the conscious. But we can be sure that there are expectations that life will be extraordinary based on the distilled version of reality that we experience every day via our technologies being the norm. So when we shift to a life without technology, we will feel a feeling which the prison of language has thusly named, at least to me, boredom. And when one is more sensitive, one feels boredom in a different way. One sees the world with more than what David Lynch has coined a golf ball-sized consciousness. We observe reality with an expanded consciousness and exploring the feeling of boredom. Close your eyes for even 10 minutes during the daylight and then open them and be astounded by the beauty that you see, and then otherwise in an otherwise like boring, still kind of average room, you hear that thing about people walking in the forest. Oh, great, another tree. Taking a stupid walk for my stupid mental health. But without access to sensory information, by completely cutting off the senses, or the things through which we experience reality and hyperreality, by cutting off the senses, even briefly, we're able to experience a really high level of reality. And that's where we can begin to philosophize about things like beauty. What is beauty? How does the body respond to beauty? And are there varying sensitivities to beauty? What are the factors that affect sensitivity to beauty? Is there such a thing as a perverse sense of beauty? If so, what are the factors, and are they traumatic, that lead to such a perverse sense of beauty? Societally, you can see in general art moving in a more distorted, to say the least, direction. And we can observe this over periods of time, over eras, what type of craft people would hold in the highest regard. And this is certainly relevant to the whole idea of, so-and-so who didn't get accepted to art school because he wasn't hip with the times. He wasn't doing surrealist work, I suppose you could say. I may have my eras wrong there, I probably do, but you know what I mean. Deconstructive works were what was in style, and they weren't looking for classicalist or romanticist paintings anymore. And I believe that was during such a time, that the world politically, internationally, was going through conflict, was going through the motions, as they say. And I believe that as the world reaches new places, reaches new heights, as culture reaches new heights, and you could argue reaching new heights through morality or through living life the way it was meant to be lived, not indulging in these guilty pleasures, and thus desensitizing yourself to the undistilled reality. You can be sensitive, again, to beauty and to feeling from simple things. All it takes is time and the willingness to investigate the feeling that we call boredom. What is patience? And how does it interact with boredom? Is one a skill? I believe patience could be considered a skill. But I think boredom can be trained in the same way. So it all depends on what we're saying and the feeling that we have attached to each word. So something like boredom is droll or unstimulating, negative. Something that is extraordinary is stimulating, very active, very interesting. They even say fascinating, which was always interesting to me because of the prefix fasten, And they spell it weird with a C, fascination, but to fasten something to something else with the T means to be attached to it in such a way. So we look at extraordinary distilled activity and we are fascinated by it. These are things that you could even consider, are the reason to live. These are the moments that we live for. And it seems as though the sense of celebration, this sense of being happy to experience something outside of the ordinary has been lost. In a lot of ways, I don't want to speak for other people, but doesn't it just suck when you're just not that excited about things anymore? And this can be the thing about outings or meeting other people, meeting new people. If you're bored, if you're boring, you aren't going to have a great time, meeting new people or going out. And it could be because the version of reality that you experience either doesn't have room to follow up, which means you would always want to hang on to something, that there can't just be one good night. And understanding that the effects of one night are permanently written, attached to your character, are undeniable. That's a fact. But to think that to live in the moment, just to experience that one night, to separate yourself, to actually be sensitive so much to it that in a way it is like the feeling of fascination, fascinated with an extraordinary reality, all of the people, all of the sounds. This is something, that afterwards it's like, whoo, after a big night, tons of people, tons of energy, the peak of energy, and coming down and looking back and remembering forever. And we can try to forget, but we know it's always going to be in there somewhere. And that's why, it's important to work through these feelings. It's important to listen to your thoughts, let them flow. Kind of what we're doing here today. But, Distilled Reality. Tripping. This has been Wander and Wonder, signing off. Thank you.